Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Random. Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Was that a closing statement by Kamala Harris or not? Well, I personally think she knocked it out of the park for what she was trying to do. Think she did a great job of it. And you know how you know she did a great job? I was watching Fox News, and Fox News was in a panic. I mean, they had stuff on the back screen, and at the same time, they have it on the back screen that's showing positive affirmations and people having a ball. The Fox News guy is saying, look, you see how boring it is. Oh, things are bad. It is so funny when they have to alter the state of reality. But you know what? You can fool, a guy used this on my show this morning. I think it was this morning. You can fool some of the people some of the time. You can fool, you can't, or something like that, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. I forget how it goes, but you know. But anyway, it turns out that it was a great 4 days. I expect her to get a small bump out of it. I don't think we are in the periods where, with such a polarized country, I don't know how many, even though we know it had good ratings, as a percentage of the country, I don't know how much gets changed. I hope a lot of it gets changed, but we'll see. But I tell you what, they did CNN did a focus group. They did a focus group of, this focus group had 10 people that did not make up their minds, were not leaning either way, according to what they said. Now, in the beginning of the group, before they heard the speech, nobody was voting for Kamala Harris. At the end, 8 of the 10 decided that they were going to be voting for Kamala Harris. One guy, you could see that he wanted to, that he was impressed with her, but he's a Trumpist. He's a MAGA. So he said instead, maybe she should wait for the next time around, given the implication that she isn't ready. Well, the truth of the matter is Donald Trump has dropped the bar as far as being ready for the president. Donald Trump makes it clear that a 7th grader can be president. Let's be clear here. If Donald Trump can be president, a 7th grader can be president. Let me tell you a secret little thing here, folks. When I was in 7th grade, I had a bigger vocabulary than Donald Trump. And I'm not kidding you. When I was in the 7th grade, both in Spanish and English, I was a declamador. I did poems, etc., 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 etc. So Donald Trump, I have no, and I'm pretty sure most of you here was just like that as well. When we talk about pea brain, that's what we're talking about. Anyhow, Bridge MCP has a poll out from political polls, P-polling numbers, and that's what we got there. Harris 50%, Trump 43%. What's the plus and minus of that Bridge MCP? What's the calculus on where it's at? I'd love to know what that is, the plus minus on it. Anyhow, welcome aboard, Bridge MCP. Welcome aboard, Eric Hayes. And of course, Lizard Queen is in the house. Oh, I didn't say where you guys are from. Welcome aboard, Eric Hayes from Kingwood of Tascasita, Bridge MCP from Binghamton, New York. We have Lizard Queen from Lizard Queen. I think you are from Houston, right? No. Lizard Queen. Yeah, I think you're from Houston, but let me know if I'm wrong. Lee Grant from Montgomery County. We also have in the house, para ver, Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. We also have in the house, para ver quién más está aquí, AVQ from Brooklyn, New York, El Señor Michael Rudden. We also have, I'm scrolling down, Lizard Queen Houston. That's what I thought, Lizard. And let's see what else we've got. If I missed you, forgive me. If I missed you, forgive me. Anyway, vamos a tener un buen programa. Hoy we're going to have a good program today. The one thing that I am very upset about is that while we gave a Jewish family the opportunity to have the floor on the speech, we didn't get a Palestinian family to do the same. I want to come out and say that straight up because I want folks to understand where we're going next. I don't want that to be an issue during the election. We must all vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Punto y final. That's allows for what progressives need to do to have the wherewithal to do so. Liz Townsend is in the house. How you doing, Liz? AIPAC would not allow it. Exactly. That's the reason why. And instead of fighting the battle with AIPAC, where they'll turn the election into, until we get money out of politics, we could get a Palestinian to speak and not be able to get Kamala elected. So we have to play smart politics. We got to play smart politics. So here's the deal. I have a subject that I want to cover today. Well, let me finish going through what you guys are saying first before we get there. Let's see. Politics done right with Egberto Willies. Over 75 millions voted for Orange Man. Guess they're like seventh graders. A lot of them are. Yes, there's no doubt about that. Or I shouldn't call them seventh graders. People that are able to defy their morals. That's what it is. Again, like I said, every single person that voted for Donald Trump, well, a lot of folks didn't know for sure if he was a rapist back when they voted for him in 2016. A lot of people didn't know how, even though the data is out there, there was no conviction then through the law. All right. So all of those things are true. We now have a conviction that proves he's a thief, a thug. We now have indictments which show that he's corrupt. We also have convictions of him having done sexual assault on women. So all of that is known now. Therefore, it doesn't matter if it's civil or not. Do you care if somebody hurts your daughter civilly or criminally? What they've done is violated her? Come on, Eric. If somebody touched my daughter, or I knew somebody who touched a friend's daughter, do you think I'm going to elevate them to some great position of power where they then can have people do these things? No. Anybody voting for Trump knowing that he's a rapist, you are just as corrupt. You are just as immoral. This part isn't up for debate. Now, do I have friendships with immoral and corrupt people? Of course. Because I am not a unidirectional person. But if you vote and put somebody into office, one person that would harm somebody in your family, especially women, look in the mirror. And there's no two ways to what I just said. There's no apologies for what I just said. None whatsoever. Anybody who votes for a rapist to run the world, to run the most important country in the world, vis-a-vis, has a lot of influence in the world, is saying something to their own daughters, is saying something to their own parents, is saying something to every woman they know. But you do it. So it's not up for debate. It is not up for debate. It is not. Okay, let's continue, my dear brothers and sisters. Michael says, Egberto, Farley Dickinson University, Madison, New Jersey. Voters nationally gave Vice President and Democratic nominee Kamala Harris an edge over former President Donald Trump in November's election by a 7-point margin, 50-43. Sampling error should be adjusted to recognize the effects of weighting the data to better match the population. In this poll, the simple sampling error of 801 is 3.5% at let's see, at a 95% confidence interval. That means that is pretty good. That is pretty good. Hey, Alistair Waters in Montgomery County, specifically Conroe, is in the house. Bridge MCP, yep, law and order people now complacent when it comes to their cult leader. Sick. Yeah, I mean, look, the church, the evangelical church has lost any any morality at all. Completely. The evangelical church, by making this their Jesus, they've turned their church into an idolatrous domain. So I mean, none of this is up for debate. If you are willing to elect Donald Trump, a rapist, to the presidency, that means you have little regards for your own mother, your auntie, your daughter, and it's that simple. You put your cult over your own blood, over your people, over women, over your friends. That's what you've done. All right. Anyhow, let's get busy. Michael says evangelicals have long since sold their so-called morality for political power so they can force their bigotry upon others, which in itself goes against Jesus' teachings. Exactly. It is funny because as the evangelical church was against integration for a while and all of that, it's funny that they were doing this under the auspices of the Bible, not realizing that guess where the Bible is? In the Jewish area. And guess what? Jesus ain't a blue-eyed blonde guy. Jesus was an olive-skinned dude. So I don't know. You guys gonna have to kind of, for all of you guys who put Jews will not replace us, Jews will not replace us. It seems like you conceded to them already as you conceded for the religion you practice. But nobody ever said that people who do these things had much upstairs. Nobody said that. All right, let's continue here. The story that I want to talk about today, let me get this off the screen for a while and talk to you guys about, I got a video to show you about Kinzinger, but I want to talk about Kinzinger a little bit later. What I do want to do is go to this article here because it's important. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. It's very, very important, and I hope people understand where we're coming from. Bear with me as I pull it up. Bear with me as wrong article. Egberto, ¿qué es lo que te pasa, mano? ¿Qué es lo que te pasa, pues? All right, let's get to that article. It was a great article at Common Dreams. And I want every progressive to read this article. The title of the article is Why Progressives Must Let Go of Their Democratic Goldilocks Complex. While crucial terrain upon which we must maneuver strategically, true systemic change will not come through electoral politics alone, particularly within a party fundamentally wedded to capitalist interests. What do we mean by that? You remember how I started the program where the Jewish family was allowed to take the stage and share their pain with America, with the Democratic delegates, with the Democratic families of delegates, etc. But the Palestinians who are suffering orders of magnitude more so than the Jewish folks who were terroristically murdered, the 1,200 of them. But we have 40-something thousand Palestinians that have been bombed and are living in holy hell. Most of Israelis get up in the mornings, they can take a shower, they can go to the coffee shop, they can drink water, they can eat good food, they can do everything that we can do here in America without any problems. Yet you drive a few dozen miles down to the north, and as you go to the north, what happens? The place is devastated. Okay, devastated. So you go down and you see all these buildings that are blown to smithereens that will never be rebuilt in the near term. People having to live on the streets, cook in pots on the streets. people with mutilated bodies, dead bodies under the rubble. That's the existence of the Palestinians. Don't Americans who watch Fox News only, or Americans who watch a sanitized news on MSNBC, CNN, or elsewhere, don't they deserve to hear the suffering of those Palestinian families as well? So that when Americans are going to their Congress people about making policy that covers that area, that they can make more humane policies and apply pressure to Israel and to the Palestinian units as well. Shouldn't they be able to do that? Of course. But they can't, because in a capitalist system where capital rules and AIPAC has capital and Palestinian organizations don't, if Kamala Harris and her team decides to put one Palestinian family on the stage on national TV in upsetting AIPAC, as was mentioned here, that would create an existential problem for winning the election for Kamala. So Kamala had to make, when I say Kamala, I'm talking about her team, had to make a strategic discussion, a strategic choice. Do we allow everybody equal access? Do we allow it? Or do we try to do these through different means? And that's what they chose to do. They chose to say, no, we'd like to have private meetings with you and see where, but we can't. Do I agree with that? No. Do I understand it? Yes. Do I think they were just about forced to do it? Yes. Because there are going to be enough battles Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to have to fight. They're going to have to fight the mainstream media that's not going to judge them on the same platform as they judge Donald Trump. Look at what they're already doing with Kamala Harris. Why aren't you coming to give us interviews on what your policies are? Did they go ahead and ask Donald Trump for any of his policies? Did they try to scrutinize any of the policies of Donald Trump? Did they call him out for not doing? No, they did not. They did not. There is going to be the largest double standard out there going forward, and we're going to have to mitigate it. So based on this article now, what I'm trying to say is we cannot think that we are going to get progressive values solely through electoral politics. But the people we do elect better be folks that we can make fungible. I repeat, the people that we elect better be people that we can make fungible. In other words, that they have some modicum of humanity, that they have some modicum of morality. Because if we don't do that, the authoritarian capitalist model would continue to increase in strength. And in increasing in strength, eventually we are completely locked out of peaceful change that is progressive in nature and that make the parasites known as capitalists, the parasites known as industrialists, the parasites known as a large percentage of the wealthy. At a point, we lose command, we lose control, and we make it that much harder to get it done civilly, peacefully. And we must do these changes peacefully, else when people start to react out of desperation, it ain't going to be anything nice. So we have to continue this fight, and we have to do it pragmatically and smart. I want to read a part of the article. It says, in her impassioned speech at the 2024 Democratic National Convention, Michelle struck a chord with many progressives when she urged Democratic voters to overcome their Goldilocks complex regarding Kamala Harris's electability. We cannot indulge our anxieties about whether this country will elect someone like Kamala instead of doing everything we can to get someone like Kamala elected, she declared, addressing concerns about Harris' racial background and gender. While Obama's call to action was inspiring for many, it inadvertently highlighted a much deeper and more problematic Goldilocks complex within the progressive circles, perpetually searching for the just right Democratic politician who can somehow thread the needle between radical change and mainstream acceptability. This futile quest, exemplified by the enthusiasm for figures like Kamala Harris or even more avowedly left-wing politicians such as Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leads to a cycle of hope and disappointment as each new progressive candidate inevitably compromises their ideals upon gaining power. Right. And it's not that they want to do that. It's that they have to compromise to get some of what they want, some of what you want. That's what they have to do. Real progress demands grassroots organizations, reinvigorating labor movements, creating mutual aid networks, and fostering broad coalitions that address the interconnected nature of various forms of oppression. Only by letting go of the Goldilocks complex and embracing the challenging work of building socialist alternatives can progressives move beyond. And by the way, that's little socialist, little less. Can progressives move beyond the cycle of electoral disappointment and begin to address the true scale of challenges we face, working towards a future of genuine freedom, equality, and sustainability for all. The democratic gridlocked complex searing for just the right capitalist politician. That doesn't seem like it makes sense, right? We don't want just because yes, all these politicians that get elected, they get elected within this capitalist system that puts capital against or put capital above humanity at every time. Most of us progressives don't believe in that tenet. We believe in humanity first and then capital. We believe in creating the business model that works around humanity. And that business model would always be great. But in the current model that we have, it's a way of moving us forward. The Democratic Party, despite its occasional progressive rhetoric, remains fundamentally wedded to the capitalist system that perpetuates many of the issues progressives seek to address. While figures like Kamala Harris may represent important symbolic victories in terms of representation, their policies often fall short of radical change needed to tackle the root causes of our societal problems. Democratic administrations have consistently failed to deliver meaningful change in areas such as economic equality, climate change, healthcare, foreign policy, and criminal justice reform. These failures stem not from a lack of good intentions, but from the inherent limitations of working within a system designed to prioritize profit and maintain existing power structures. Let me give a good example. Jails. If you have a system that privatizes jails, a private system it's fundamentally created for profits. That actually means then that if the government private sector interface for jails, that means there is an incentive for that jail to remain filled, and thus policies have to be passed to and actions taken to keep that jail filled. Likewise with healthcare. There should be no private insurance companies if we were in a true efficient system, right? Because as it turns out, the only innovation we need in healthcare is when we're designing new drugs, when we're designing new equipment. But hospitals and these having competing hospitals make no sense, right? I mean, what we should all have is a standard for hospitals. And if you want to have esoteric hospitals, that's great. You go out there and pay for it. But the hospital health the hospital healthcare system is one of the biggest inefficiencies, but we won't change that under a capitalist system where capital was invested to build hospital under the tenet that it's going to make a payback from using that hospital system that the government pays for, private people pay for, insurance pay for. It's an inherently circularly corrupt system, a capitalist system. When we talk about a bifurcated economy, we talk about one where things that belong in the private sector remain in the private sector. You want a pizza shop, you want a grocery store, you want all these things that people have real choices in. That should be in the private sector. But things like hospitals and healthcare, none of that is efficient when done in the private sector, because at that point, profit becomes an expense on that system. In other words, if I am to fix your lungs, I can only fix your lung if some rich fat cat makes money. I can only fix your heart if some fat cat makes money. I'm talking about the investor class who invest in the hospitals, who invest in all these things. In as much as we, the people, are the ones who provide most of the intellect to build or to create the drugs, most of the intellect to create, or we pay for most of the intellect to create everything within the healthcare system, whether through grants, whether through public education, whether through inventions on campuses that are eventually sold to private sector. So what this article is trying to put out clearly is that we are not going to get change from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Yes, the Democratic Party presents a more benign form of capitalism. Yes, it does. Because it wants to put some humanity into capitalist system. But in the process, what it's doing is putting a lipstick on a pig. Because as an example, when Obamacare came out, we should not have had private insurance companies. If private insurance companies wanted to exist and do something for rich people, fine. But we should have had one healthcare system where we all spread the risk of all Americans over the entire country, and we would have one set price that the government pays for the services. It would have been the perfect time, like I had mentioned 10 years ago, for the transition to healthcare for all. But the compromise that was forced onto Obamacare, onto the Affordable Care Act, because of not Republicans, because of Democrats, was to keep the fraudulent system up. And in doing so, you paid for that fraud. You ultimately paid for that fraud through higher taxes, through deficit spending, through money out of your pocket. You paid for that fraud. So it is important for us, as this article is trying, a very long article. I have the link on my blog for you to read on your own. But in effect, the bottom line of this article is this. Yes, let's vote the most progressive person we have on the ballot. In this case, it is Kamala Harris. But the one thing we can't do is to expect there to be substantive changes in the actual way our economy functions. There aren't going to be a hospital system that will be removed from the private sector. We won't take insurance companies out of the private sector. Kamala is going to be right down the middle on the capitalist structure, slightly on the left on certain policies to try to make capitalism a little bit more humane. And of course, Donald Trump is on the evil side of the spectrum that actually costs you money. So what's the solution? As he expressed in the article, and we all should know by now, we use electoral politics just as one tool. We the most progressive we can, just as one tool. But we must work as far of what's his name, Alperovich. I went to visit an economist. His name is Gas Alperovich, I believe. Look him up. I think it's Gas, either Gal or Gas Alperovich. We have to start working. The capitalist system because the capitalist system doesn't depend on capitalism and democracy are not the same thing at all. Therefore, because we still have a relatively true democracy, notice I said relatively, we can have a bifurcated economy created by us. And that is where we need to form ancillary groups. And we already started with a lot of that. Collectives. Austin have many green collectives where people pool their resources together and they form their own economies. We have to form these economies within economies and build our infrastructure within these economies. But we have to be honest about it, and we have to get around the bickering about it. In other words, we have to understand that we let Kamala Harris win. And the policies that we get from her are, we know where it's going to be, but also we make sure that we have policies that says, leave us to hell alone if we create collectives. Leave us to hell alone to prevent the private sector when we start forming collectives to stop us from forming collectives. Let me give you an example. If you are living in Kingwood, Texas right now, and you decided you wanted to be off grid, you wanted to generate your own electricity, you wanted to do all of that on your own, you couldn't. You have to pay the utility company a fee, even if they're not serving you at all. Again, other examples. If you want to get your own water that comes down in the rain that comes from the skies, you theoretically, I think that's a law, still a law in Texas, you can't collect your own rainwater and create your own purification plant and do it all on your own legally. So we have policies that are anti-freedom to prop up the capitalist system. And those are the things that, while we can't stop the capitalist system straight on from damaging us, from killing us, we can at least get progressives in there that will leave us the hell alone as we create something like communes. Something like communes, Lee Grant, but more scientific, not the hippie type. Well, if you want to have your hippie commune, that's fine, but one that actually is well organized. I mean, I think it's Spain have Richard Wolff always speaks about one of them that works very well in Spain. I think they're up to 60-something thousand people. So that is where we're at right now. But anyway, so that's a topic that I wanted to cover today. I think I've covered it. Let me go now to to some of your questions and statements. All right, let's see what we got here. Let me scroll up. Let's start from Michael Rudden and Gaza. Egberto, Gaza isn't mentioned in that article, though a skim of that article tells me it's pushing a vote for a lesser evil agenda, then try to push the party away from evil. Snippet from the article: as we confront the enormous challenges of our time, from climate change to a rising authoritarianism, deepening inequality, Goldilocks complex. Let's see, this doesn't mean completely disengaging from electoral politics, ignoring the real dangers posed by far-right movements. Strategic engagement with centrist parties are sometimes necessary for defensive measures. However, progressives must never lose sight of the fact that these parties are structurally incapable of addressing the root causes of our current crisis. Their solutions are not finding the perfect capitalist savior, but in our collective power to imagine and create a fundamentally different kind of society. Yeah, I agree. I know it doesn't mention Gaza, but again, we can't cover all bases. It doesn't mention Nairobi. It doesn't mention what's going on in Sudan. It doesn't measure a whole lot of things. And to some extent, a lot of what's going on in Sudan and parts of West Africa right now is much worse than what's going on in Gaza. So, I get it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Michael Runnan says, when I look through my FB feed every other hour about the DNC convention and Kamala Harris mentions Gaza, whether blaming Netanyahu, Biden, and or Harris ending or participation in that genocide through armed shipments will be the primary focus of the left. Well, we can put the pressure on. I think that's important. Shakula Hairstyle is welcome. She says millions of Americans are breaking out in blue fever. Yes, they are. And Lee Grant says Kamala straddled the Israel-Gaza issue pretty good. I'll give her that. I don't think it was good at all. I think it sounded cheesy. I think that was the worst part of her speech, to be honest with you, because it was like saying, look, that speech pretty much said that a Jewish Israeli is more human than a Palestinian. We take care of the Jewish Israeli first, and then we worry about the Palestinians, and that's our policy. I mean, you can't see 40-something thousand people dead, be supplying the arms to Israel that's using 2,000 bombs and killing these people, and at the same time saying, we have to protect Israel, which is true, but we can also tell Israel, stop it, and don't destroy the whole damn infrastructure of the place. Who's going to rebuild it? Don't you know that poverty and economic activity breeds terrorists? I mean, what Israel is doing has nothing to do with protecting making them safer. It has everything to do with genocide. Because if it were trying to keep them safer, they would not be out there creating more terrorists by increasing the level of hate. They wouldn't be killing people in West Bank. They wouldn't be raping men with sticks in the jails in Israel. So let's be honest. The problem about it is this discussion is never honest, because having an honest discussion, people fear being referred to as anti-Semitic. Well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I've got my Jewish brothers and sisters that I love dearly. But I love my Palestinian brothers and sisters just as much. Just as much. And I think it's shameful, American policy, whether it's from Biden, whether it's been from Obama, whether it's from Trump, Bush, our policy has always been horrendous in the Middle East because we give gradation of humanity. But then again, that should be no surprise, because we have gradation of humanity here in the United States. My brother Bruce is in the house. I see him right now. My life is not as valuable as Bruce's life here in America at all. I mean, there are things that they're just realities that we have to be honest about. We don't cry about it. We don't complain about it. We try to change it. We try to change people's perception. But at this point in time, my life still isn't as valuable as my brother Bruce Pollard right here in the room. And the reason why, cops would do things to me that they would never think about doing to Bruce. If Bruce and I go in most stores still to this date, at the same time, Bruce will always get first dibs all the time. What does that mean? That's just how America still is. That is why even Kamala Harris has to be careful in the way she does things, because as a black woman, she has 3 strikes against her. She's black. She's Asian. She's a South Asian woman. And she's a woman. 3 strikes. She has to be perfect to win. And I'm not talking about people like my sister here, Bridge MCP, who will vote for her, no problem, because Bridge MCP is a true, honest, moral American. But, a large percentage of white Americans have not yet gotten there to the point where they believe in true equality. They believe in equality until and up to they think somebody of color may be ahead of them economically or otherwise. And if you doubt that, that is one of the major issues with the Trump movement. They will not replace us. They're coming and taking what's ours. They're taking our birthright. A birthright that never really existed. The only people that have ever screwed them was their own. But again, these are things we have to open up and talk about honestly, sincerely, and make people realize, no, we're all in the same boat. And it's people that are screwing us are the people that are dividing us. And they're dividing us in order to rob us, to pilfer us. That's what they do. I explain a lot of this stuff in my book here, Tribulations of an Afro-Latino-Caribbean Man. Because I've lived this thing. And I keep my smile. I keep my love for everybody. But I would never, ever not know that when I go certain places, what happens based on my hue. I always know that. Do I use it as a crutch? No. I supersede that. All right. Let's see. Was her speech progressive? My brother Pollard asks. No. The speech was not a progressive speech, but it was sufficiently progressive. Well, it had sufficient notes in it that progressives can hold on to and vote for her. But she did the pivot she had to. I have nothing against what Kamala did. She did the right thing. She did the only thing that could get her elected. She did the only thing that could get her elected. So that's where it's at. Now, it's incumbent on us to convince our other people around to let her know some of the things that she has to do. Already, the policies we want are the most popular policies. We just have to effectuate that with her election and with the people under her that we put into power. All right. Alistair Waters talk about the Nordic model. The Nordic model is a good model. That's what we have in Scandinavia, meaning Norway and Sweden and these places. Even though the right wing is trying to get a hold in these countries using the migration that has recently affected these places, they're trying to get them. Jews will not replace us. In this case, it is Africans will not replace us. You know, they have different influxes out there. All right. Steigen Bergen Greek says, I would be interested to hear how Kamala plans on handling Israel after she wins. Seems to me issuing some arrest warrants for Israeli war criminals would be a good start. That isn't done by the United States. That's done by the World Court. My dear friend. All right. But he says, Steigen Bergen Greek, not our country. Not a chance. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got here. What else have we got here? Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. She's in late. Michael Rodin said we could stop protecting Israel on the international stage, especially in the UN, and stop sending arms treatment. It would push Israel to end the war. Yes, it would, but we would never do it because AIPAC would then do what they did to Jamal Bowman and Cory Bush. Okay. What else we got here? Michael Rodin says, Breach, I can't say that what Kamala Harris would do as president in regards to Israel Gaza, but it's got to be better than Biden's practically unconditional support. That is true. Again, her father and mother did instill real morality in her. But again, her mother and father were professors and scientists, not politicians. She has to be a politician to get anything done in Senate. Patrick Magner said there should be no system that allows someone to profit from another's suffering. I agree. But we have to get there. That's how we have to do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and play the first video of the day, which is former GOP congressperson. Let's go ahead and play that one. Let's get busy one time. Many Republicans appeared at the DNC in Chicago to pretty much, first of all, endorse Kamala Harris, but also to really give other Republicans permission to vote for her, specifically because they all believe their party has gone down the wrong path in the way they've dealt and ceded the party to Donald Trump, who is nothing more than an evil person in for himself. But Adam Kinzinger, the person who had all the evidence of Trump's insurrection, the person who had all the evidence of the evils done by Trump in both the Russian deal and in many other instances, he came out, and he came out harder than anyone else. The excoriation was complete. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Adam Kinzinger, and I am proud to be in the trenches with you as part of this sometimes awkward alliance that we have to defend truth, defend democracy, and decency. I was just a kid when I was drawn to the party of Ronald Reagan, to his vision of a strong America, the shining city on a hill. I was a Republican for 12 years in Congress, and I still hold on to the label. I never thought I'd be here, but listen, you never thought you'd see me here, did you? But I've learned something about the Democratic Party, and I want to let my fellow Republicans in on the secret. The Democrats are as patriotic as us. They love this country just as much as we do, and they are as eager to defend American values at home and abroad as we conservatives have ever been. I was relieved to discover that because I've learned something about my party too, something I couldn't ignore. The Republican Party is no longer conservative. It has switched its allegiance from the principles that gave it purpose to a man whose only purpose is himself. Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong. He is a small man pretending to be big. He's a faithless man pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim. He puts on quite a show, but there is no real strength there. As a conservative and a veteran, I believe true strength lies in defending the vulnerable. It's in protecting your family. It's in standing up for our Constitution and our democracy. That is the soul of being a conservative. It used to be the soul of being a Republican, but Donald Trump has suffocated the soul of the Republican Party. His fundamental weakness has coursed through my party like an illness, sapping our strength, softening our spine, whipping us into a fever that has untethered us from our values. Our democracy was frayed by the events of January 6th, as Donald Trump's deceit and dishonor led to a siege on the United States Capitol. That day, I stood witness to a profound sorrow, the desecration of our sacred tradition of peaceful transition of power, tarnished by a man too fragile, too vain, and too weak to accept defeat. How can a party claim to be patriotic if it idolizes a man who tried to overthrow a free and fair election? How can a party claim to stand for liberty if it sees a fight for freedom in Ukraine, an attack pitting tyranny against democracy, a challenge to everything our nation claims to be, and it retreats, it equivocates, it nominates a man who is weirdly obsessed with Putin, and his running mate who said, quote, "I don't care what happens in Ukraine." Yeah, and he wants to be vice president. Yeah. How can a party claim to be conservative when it tarnishes the gifts that our forebears fought for? Men like my grandfather, who served in World War II, who believed in a cause bigger than himself, and he risked his life for it behind enemy lines. To preserve American democracy, his generation found the courage to face down armies. Listen, all we're asked to do is to summon the courage to stand up to one weak man. Some have questioned why I've taken the stand I have. The answer is really simple, ladies and gentlemen. We must put country first. And tonight, as a Republican speaking before you, I'm putting our country first. Because the fact is, I do belong here. I know Kamala Harris shares my allegiance to the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy. and she is dedicated to upholding all three in service to our country. Whatever policies we disagree on pale in comparison with those fundamental matters of principle, of decency, and of fidelity to this nation. Listen, to my fellow Republicans, if you still pledge allegiance to those principles, I suspect you belong here too. Because democracy knows no party. It's a living, breathing ideal that defines us as a nation. It's the bedrock that separates us from tyranny, and when that foundation is fractured, we must all stand together, united, to strengthen it. If you think those principles are worth defending, then I urge you, make the right choice. Vote for our bedrock values, and vote for Kamala Harris. God bless you.
You've got to ask yourself, after a respected Republican could easily come out with such an excoriation, how could any other thinking, moral Republican decide that Donald Trump deserves to have the highest office of the land, if not the highest office in the world? I think, and remember, I've said this over and again, this election, while everybody keeps talking about it being close, I cannot fathom the belief that somehow there is going to be a large amount of Americans voting for the ineptitude for what Donald Trump is, what he represents. I just can't fathom it. I still have to stay with my stance. We must have a landslide in 2024. Kamala Harris will do it that way. Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. So my contention is that while everybody's looking out for that election, I think we have to go out there and work hard. We have to go out there and platform Kinzinger and these others, because some Republicans need permission to do the right thing. You know, there are some groups that sort of need that level of permission to do the right thing. Their morality is not enough to get it done. Well, Kinzinger and Troy and a few others, Republicans that spoke at the Democratic National Convention, they're out there doing it, and a lot more of them likely will do it. Man, time really snuck up on us today. Wow. Well, you know, I still have a whole lot of videos. Look, I got so much videos to process, both from Netroots and from the DNC. I think I'm going to be working for a long time on these issues, even as I have more things to do. My laptop just came back from repair, so I have to rebuild that today as well. Let's see what else we have here. Para ver. All right. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. So what I want to, let's see, Patrick Magnus is unfortunate. It will be the Electoral College that will be the issue. I see a repeat of Bush-Gore next year. I don't. I honestly don't. I think what we're looking, I think with the pathways that Kamala has opened up, I don't think it's a chance. Let's see. Tamara Chan just said, I just got off the phone with RFK Jr. I told him I would offer him a position as dishwasher. He said he's thinking about it. He's a joke. He's a disappointment for what the Kennedys are used to be. But anyway, folks, we're at the end of the show. I want to ask all of you to support the program. How can you support the program? You can support the program by becoming a subscriber to our newsletter. That's all I'm going to ask for today. Please consider giving us a coffee a month. That is what it costs for our subscription to our newsletter. So I want to ask you so kindly to go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter and become a paid subscriber, and you get fringes for that. You get a chance to read all of my books online, and if you want to know what it looks like, For those of you who've never been here before, if you become a paid subscriber of our newsletter, this is a website that goes along with our newsletter on the screen. And if you notice, there's a list of all the interviews that I've done. Well, I'm still populating that because, I just added that link. But also what we have here is my books. And you can go read my books immediately. You can do this from the phone app as well. Read my books immediately. And I've quoted a lot of these books. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, How to Make America Utopia, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors, and Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man. All of it is online now. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber by going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Yes, you get our newsletter, and also you get full access to my books. And these are my current books, but any subsequent book that I write as well will be there. So please, my dear brothers and sisters, support the program by supporting our newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.